Singer David has been officially charged in the death of the 14-year-old girl whose body was reportedly dismembered in his car all the way back in September. Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman is going to join me live in just a little bit. I have a ton of questions. Also tonight, House Oversight Committee has launched a probe into the deaths or disappearances of nearly a dozen scientists who have worked in U.S. nuclear or rocket technology. This is something that Oversight Chairman James Comer called a potential, quote, grave threat to U.S. national security if the reports are accurate. This is a major escalation. And then later, the U.S. government launched its tariff refund portal today following the Supreme Court's February ruling that President Trump was not authorized to impose those tariffs. $166 billion is going to be refunded to businesses. But what does it actually mean for you? What does it mean for the consumer? We're going to break it down. But we have to start right now. I talk big developments today, charges against David. 7 months in the making. The singer David, real name David Anthony Burke, was arraigned today out in Los Angeles in connection with the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Last September, her dismembered and decomposed body was found inside of a Tesla allegedly registered to Burke. And today, Celeste's family was in court as the 21-year-old entered a plea of not guilty. Now, Burke faces multiple charges here, including one that could put the death penalty on the table, even though there's a moratorium on executions in California. But we're talking first-degree murder, continuous sexual abuse of a minor, and mutilation of human remains. At today's presser, District Attorney Nathan Hochman said that this murder charge includes 3 special circumstances allegations: lying in wait, murder for financial gain, and killing a witness in an investigation. So prosecutors allege, essentially, that Burke killed Celeste to protect his budding music career after she threatened to report their sexual relationship. The district attorney also saying that that relationship may have begun when she was as young as 13 years old. Now, Hochman announced a special allegation that Burke personally used a deadly and dangerous weapon described as a sharp instrument to commit this crime. Burke's attorneys, though, they fired back. They maintain his innocence. They sent us this statement: the actual evidence in this case will show that David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, and he was not the cause of her death. We will vigorously defend David's innocence. And yes, to be clear, David is innocent until proven guilty. And normally, this would be the point where I start connecting the dots of walking through what prosecutors say happened. I don't have to do that tonight. Why? Because the man bringing these charges is here with us. Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman joins us now live. Thank you so much for taking the time, sir. I know this is an important day for you, your office, Celeste's family, but I have been following this case every day for 7 months, so I have a lot of questions for you, and I was hoping you could clarify some things. First of all, can you tell us why David wasn't charged on Friday when he was arrested? Because I understand there were reports of a grand jury was hearing evidence, so usually, right, there would be an indictment and an arrest in conjunction. Why wasn't he charged on Friday?
So while you are right that the reports have been that there was an investigative grand jury, in California there's a difference between the grand juries. There's an investigative grand jury that hears testimony, can receive documents through subpoenas, and then there's an indictment grand jury. While we can't comment yet until the grand jury transcripts are unsealed by a court, I can't even confirm that a grand jury has occurred. There have been media reports that certain individuals, both cooperative witnesses and uncooperative witnesses, went in front of the grand jury. And over the last 7 months, more importantly, the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division, working with the DA's office, has methodically and rigorously gone through the forensic and digital evidence, dealt with every witness statement we could obtain in order to get to this point when we have filed the charges. And very often in Los Angeles, those charges will follow an arrest within 48 hours, unless there's a weekend, of an arrest.
The reason I ask you that is because there were reports that the DA's office and the LAPD weren't on the same page, that something happened during this grand jury that stalled it, and the LAPD made an arrest, put the pressure on the DA's office to make a charging decision today. Because even in the announcement on Friday, your office had said that they were aware of the arrest. So there was this report that perhaps you weren't on the same page when it came to charging David. Your response?
That's completely unfounded. We have been on the same page, working in lockstep with the LAPD robbery homicide since they picked up this case in September of 2025, when Celeste, the 14-year-old at the time, when her body was found dismembered and severely decomposed in the front trunk of a Tesla that was owned and registered to Mr. Burke, David Burke. So again, to the extent that anyone wants to create some type of story that the LAPD and the LADA's office were not working in lockstep, that would be untrue.
So I guess the question would be, doesn't this now have to go to a preliminary hearing for there to be enough probable cause to sustain these charges? This is something that his defense attorneys pointed out today. They want an immediate preliminary hearing that would be in front of a court. It's public. It's not a grand jury. Some would say it's easier to get charges in front of a grand jury than a preliminary hearing, particularly where I believe his defense attorney is now questioning the cause of death. So I go back to the question, is this the way that you always envision this case, to present it in front of a court as opposed to a grand jury? Is there an advantage to doing this?
So we typically actually present these type of cases at a preliminary hearing. The defense has the right to request a preliminary hearing within 10 days of the arraignment, which would be 10 days from today. Often, though, what will happen in that 10 days is they will get discovery from us. That discovery is incredibly voluminous. We estimate there will literally be terabytes of digital and forensic evidence, witness interviews. At some point, the court might unseal the grand jury transcripts, and they will get the grand jury transcripts. We have now, the court today issued an order to the coroner to release the coroner's report in this case. So whether or not the defense can be ready within the next 10 days to have a preliminary hearing, the only thing I can assure you is that that preliminary hearing goes forward, we will be prepared for it.
When they're disputing cause of death, any indication about why they're doing that? I mean, it's one thing to say he's innocent, he didn't do this. They're disputing cause of death. They're putting the pressure now on your office to prove this at a preliminary hearing. Is there something about the cause of death? And I don't believe they've seen the coroner's report. Anything you could say that might raise a question about that, or why they're raising a question about that?
Again, they haven't seen the coroner's report either. So the idea that there's a question over a report that they haven't seen yet and the cause of death, again, the defense will engage in whatever strategies and tactics and make whatever statements they have. At the end of the day, though, we will prove our case in court. At a preliminary hearing, it's by a preponderance, a probable cause level of evidence. And in a trial, it will be beyond a reasonable doubt.
Can you clarify something? Again, it came out today, but I just want to make sure I'm accurate. Your theory of the case is that Burke allegedly lured Celeste out to this property, that she was going to report him to the police about their relationship, and that is why he killed her? And if I'm correct, how do you intend to prove that?
So the actual details of the evidence will be presented at the preliminary hearing and later at a trial. What we charge, though, and what the complaint charges is first-degree murder with 3 different special circumstances. The first one is lying in wait. And the allegation, as alleged in the complaint, is that Burke invited Celeste to his house the night of April 23rd, 2025, at which point he was lying in wait to murder her. The second special circumstance that was charged, and by the way, the reason you end up charging special circumstances in California is that if you have first-degree murder and you get convicted of it, it's 25 years to life.
Right.
But that allows the life sentence to be with the possibility of parole. If any one of the 3 special circumstances is found beyond a reasonable doubt by the jury, that then creates a life without the possibility of parole sentence, or if we so choose to seek it, the death penalty.
You mentioned cooperating and non-cooperating witnesses. I will tell you, people will look at this and say, okay, if the allegations are true, how on earth could David, this singer, kill this girl, dismember her body, leave it in a Tesla all by himself? There are those who say there's no way that he could have done this by himself, yet he's the only one charged. Are we dealing with a circumstance where there might be others involved, but they're cooperating, and if they choose not to cooperate anymore, they may be charged? Because I was listening to the press conference today. I was wondering if there's a little bit of opening that other people might be involved here.
Well, we have an ongoing investigation in the sense that if any individuals have information about Mr. Burke or anything dealing with this particular crime, please at any time reach out to the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division or the DA's office and bring us that information. With respect to any potential other individuals, as I said during the press conference, if and when we charge anybody else, and I'm not saying we will, you'll be the first to know.
And I have to ask this, but there was a lot of reports about Neil Langston as a potential friend of David who was reportedly arrested, brought back to testify. Is this one of the individuals we should be looking at?
Again, I'm not going to comment one way or the other about any particular additional individuals or whether there are any additional individuals. What we did with respect to individuals who wanted to either cooperate with our investigation or were uncooperative is that they often receive subpoenas to come in and testify in order for us to get the information to make the decision we made today to file these charges.
You called this a parent's worst nightmare. Based on everything I've seen in this case and what you described today, you're 100% right. What was it like sitting down with Celeste's family? Because during the course of these 7 months, we really haven't heard too much from them, and I understand why.
You know, I mean, as any parents, and I am a parent of 3 children, can appreciate, when your daughter goes missing, and she went missing the night of April 23rd, 2025, and days go by, first hours go by, then days, then weeks. You don't know if she's alive, you don't know if she's dead. And then months go by, over 4 months, until finally it comes to light that your daughter's body has been cut up, mutilated, it's decomposing in bags inside of a front trunk of a Tesla all the way into September of 2025. Then you want to know, I mean, that not only is that your worst nightmare, that is the most horrible possible result that can happen. And now you want justice at some level. It'll never bring her back. It's impossible. But you want the killer and that murderer found, brought to court, have the evidence presented, convicted, and punished. And that's what we intend to do.
The medical examiner's report, before I let you go, talked about it being unsealed. When can we expect it to be unsealed, and what can we expect to be in that report regarding cause of death? And you also mentioned that Burke allegedly used a sharp instrument. How much is that report going to fill in the details?
Until that report's public, I can't comment on it, but I will tell you that the judge issued the order today to the coroner's office to make it public. I don't know how fast they'll respond to that order. I would imagine expeditiously. So I would imagine, again, within the next several days or week, that report will become public, and then you can read it and make your own determinations.
DA Nathan Hochman, again, appreciate you taking the time after what is a very long day to help clarify some information in this case. Appreciate you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.